All right, hello everybody. Welcome to the end of the week. Tough week. We had a bunch of good weeks in a row. This is a couple rough ones in a row, so I hope everybody's hanging in there. We'll talk about whether this was a buying opportunity, what's going on. I'm going to let you guys know what I did. So huge amounts of information came out this week, so definitely there's a lot to talk about. If you're new here, welcome. I see a lot of existing subscribers and a bunch of members on the stream, so welcome to Miguel, Sourmelon Gaming, Pobrain, Edmund, Darren, Barry, Old Jock. Let's see, did I miss anybody? Steven, Crypto Fever. Those are the members on the stream that I see in the comment section. Hello, JJT. Welcome. Who else did I say? JR, welcome. Everybody, welcome to the stream. If you guys can do me a favor, I feel like we're going to struggle today because it was a rough day. It was a rough week. So if everybody could please smash the like button. It does help the live stream. Let's get some more people on the live stream. And I think we're going to need to hit the like button big time today to get people going. I want to get people motivated. I'm going to just start right out by saying I'm still optimistic, but I will say we're once again at a crucial point. So we keep finding ourselves heading back to the same spot. You know, so sometimes you got to worry. Support, you know, can only hold so many times. Are we going to break down through this at one point? Or can we hold and rebound? So I'll look at all those numbers. I'm zoomed in. What we're looking at right now is the 15-minute chart. So other than just, you know, today's activity, there's not much to be gleaned from the 15-minute chart. But I just look at this to see how the day is going. For those of you who are new to the channel, there is always an orange line. This is where Bitcoin was when the U.S. equity markets closed yesterday. So basically, this is the last 24 hours. So you can see we're down. We had a pullback. From there until where we are right now, we're down. It's not even 1%. At the bottom, it was a little over 1%, but we were already pretty low yesterday. Investing. We're at 29,000 right now. 28.8 is kind of that magic number that I think is very, very strong support. Barry, who's been a member for 10 months. Thank you very much, Barry. Much appreciated. Thanks to all the members. Thank you specifically, Barry. Has a comment. Will Gary Gensler ruin AI now? Yeah, I'm starting to think that he's losing his influence. And the more that you see them, the louder they get, I feel like the less their influence has. Some key things did come out this week. Some big names and big influencers in the financial world are really starting to line up, in particular behind Bitcoin. So I don't know cryptocurrency overall, and I know AI is the latest and greatest brand new thing. And I will say we should talk later about the fact that a lot of the Bitcoin mining companies are also an AI play. That's the way it's working out. It's a natural fit. Some of them were earlier than others. Most specifically, Hut was talking high performance computing, and that's, these high performance computing centers is where the AI it's integral to the AI process. We did do, for members only, I believe we did an AI video. We just did a quantum computing video, deep dives. So, if you remember, you can check those out. I'm not sure where all this is going. I do know a lot of companies did get a pump on this big time over the last month. We'll see, there's been a little bit of a pullback. We'll see where it goes from here. But it is a valid revenue stream for a lot of these Bitcoin miners. That, I'm not saying it's going to be their dominant revenue stream, but it's fiat money. If it helps them get to positive EBITDA, ultimately, hopefully sooner than later, we're about to get a lot of reports. Most of these companies, most of the Bitcoin mining companies that we talk about are going to give us their quarterly earnings report over the next 2 weeks. And I'm really looking forward to that because there's some crucial information that I really, really want to see. There's some information that we only get once a quarter with these quarterly reports. We do get, this is a great industry because we have monthly operational updates, and there's almost a standard getting set. Not everybody, is as forthcoming, but almost every single Bitcoin miner puts out a monthly operational report and gives all their key data points. But what they don't talk about, is some of the financial stuff, which you can only really see by analyzing a financial statement. In other words, what was their actual cost per coin? And that's a financial number per their financial statement. Some of these companies do report that on a monthly basis, but until you see it in the financials, you don't really see where they end up. So what was their overhead? How did they manage their cash, liquidity, all those things? So it is a big deal. We're going to get a bunch of these. I expect them to be I expect this to be the best bunch of quarterly reports we've had in a year and a half. So I'm pretty optimistic about what we're going to see. I don't want to get overly optimistic. It's not like I don't think these companies are going to show that they're raining profits because we're just not quite there yet. But, for the last, we've been at Bitcoin, 30,000 plus or minus for quite some time now. So the average revenue for these companies will have gone up. We're going to see what the cost per coin is, what the energy costs are. So, that's on the way. I think, we're days away. Today is Friday. Several of these companies will be reporting their earnings next week. So it's going to be a very busy week. I want to hear all the conference calls to get some of the specifics. Some of these companies I am starting to have some big question marks about certain things. Other of these companies I'm getting more and more confident on. I'm going to just do a quick poll right now. Let's start by saying, let's see here. Sorry, I can't multitask, so I can't talk while I type. I'm almost done. I wish they would let me have more than 4 options. That's the most I can have. So let's see. I'm going to go with these. So, all right. Let's start here. So I just want to get a read on what you guys thought, and then I'll let you know what my thoughts are, and we can expand. So what I've asked here is, who had the best July operating update? So I think all of the top 10 miners have put out their monthly operational. This is the fastest we've ever gotten these reports. By yesterday, almost everybody had reported. I think there's 2 or 3 that haven't. I know HUT, I don't think, has reported yet. A couple others. But for the most part, we've gotten all the reports. So I had to use other because it only gives me 4 options. But Marathon, Cleanspark, CIFR, other. So let's see. And if it's other, drop in the chat who you think that is. The other one that I think is in contention for this, well, there's a couple of more. I thought there was a lot of good reports. I feel like everybody, the Bitcoin miners, a lot of these Bitcoin miners, particularly there's 8 that I have in mind, I really think are honing their business and they're getting better and better at what they do. There is one of the big ones that I do have several big question marks on. So I'll talk about that in a few minutes. And, I think I'm hoping that they can answer and clear some of this up in their, they're going to do their quarterly reports, their 10Q next week, and they'll have their conference, their earnings call, And I think some key questions need to be asked and answered. I'm talking about, I'll just tell you, I have some questions about Riot. And that is one of my big positions, and I haven't sold out of it. But I do have some questions. I'm not sure, well, let's just say this. They're not exactly where I thought they would be right now. And I have some questions. And that doesn't mean I think it's a nightmare or a catastrophe or any of those things. There's just a few things that don't quite add up for me. They answered a little bit of it. They answered in their monthly operational update. So I do think over the next 90 days, we're really going to get a much better sense for what's going on with Riot. You know, the flip side of Riot is they have the best balance sheet in the business, period, in my opinion. They have a path for growth that's huge, right? They just made a deal to get to 21.6 exahash, but ultimately within that deal, they have the option to get all the way up to 35 exahash. Now, you know, I'm not expecting that to happen anytime soon, but that would leave them among the leaders. However, I do have some questions about efficiency. I have some questions about hosting their whole profitability equation there. So I'm hoping we get some answers in this quarterly report on those issues. So we're going to have to wait and see. If everybody could just do me a big favor and smash the like button. Of course, it is free to like the stream. And by the way, if you have not subscribed yet, I really would appreciate if you do enjoy this content, if you could hit the subscribe button. It helps that helps the channel out a lot as well. I want to take a moment out to just thank everybody for all the views over the last month. We've had a big pickup in the channel. You know, I suspect some of that is the fact that, you know, at the beginning of July, the first 2 weeks of July were absolutely spectacular. We're now, you know, July's over. It's now the first week in August. And the last couple of weeks have been pretty tough. So, you know, we all have very short-term memories. That's how the world works now. But, you know, those first couple of weeks in July, Bitcoin, not so much Bitcoin. Bitcoin was very flat. The Bitcoin miners were absolutely raging. So, you know, that was good stuff. I know personally for me, that portion of my portfolio went crazy in those few weeks. In really a 3-week period. I will say that portion of my portfolio in the last 2 weeks has gotten beaten up. But I'll let you know, I have been averaging into several of these. I'll talk about the ones that I've been averaging into. They're pretty much the same ones. I did make one shift, so I'll tell you the change that I made, and I did that today. So, but in general, I have been adding to these positions, and I added to 3 positions today. So I have not added every single day. Every single day is not a buying opportunity. Just because it's a red day, you know, I don't buy every single day, but I do like at least once a week or twice a week, you know, if there's big move to the downside. I try to average into some of these and you know, increase the positions that I have the most conviction in. So, you know, that's been, I am mostly a long-term investor. I have very little. This is the least amount of options I have in my portfolio that I've had probably in years. It's almost none. And I'm just not seeing. I will tell you, I spent every day this week looking at options. And, you know, I couldn't find an option. And I'm looking to buy some calls, and I'll tell you why. And I know there's a lot of different option strategies to make money. At the moment, I feel like I'm still waiting for this run to 35,000. So for those of you who lost faith, maybe that'll be our next poll, and we'll talk about where Bitcoin's going next. I think wherever we go in the next couple of days or week or couple of weeks, I feel like, you know, sometime in the next 30 or 60 days, we're going to make this run to 35,000. It's been about a month and a half of sideways activity again. We just went through a period earlier this year of 2 months of sideways activity. I think it was 68 days, and it was a 20% pullback. But then we had a nice run up after that, and now we seem to be having a very similar situation. So, you know, is this going to hold and give us another move to the upside? We'll look. I'll get to the 1-day time frame and look at more of that in a minute. So let's see where the poll is at. So the first thing I want to point out is other is only getting 10%. So that means really, and CIFR is only getting 6%. So 84% of you feel like CleanSpark and Marathon were the best performers in July. And that breaks down. CleanSpark right now is in first place, just under half of you, 49. Well, boom, 50% now as we speak. Somebody cast a vote. So half of the people have voted. If you haven't voted, it's free to vote, of course. So place your vote. 50% of this group thinks that CleanSpark had the best month in the month of July. 34% think that Marathon had the best month, and then, there's gigantic, nobody's in third place because, other, which is the other 15 companies, altogether they're at 9%, and CIFR's at 5%. So this really does seem to be a huge consensus. So I'll tell you, I completely agree. I think CleanSpark and Marathon, I did put out, I guess you still call them tweets. I did put out a tweet, I'm going to call it for now, that I thought Marathon and CleanSpark were the big winners in the month of July. But I do think several other companies had very good reports. So, it's not like they're the only two that had a good report. I think, there's a bunch of others. I think Bitfarms had a great report. I think that Iris Energy had a great report. There were several other that I thought had good reports. So mostly I was impressed this month. And again, I really feel like these companies are starting to they're finding their spot, and it's time for them to do that because we're, 8 months away, 8 or 9 months away from the halving. And, these guys got to get organized and, they got to be doing what they're doing. They got to continue to increase efficiency. They got to continue to focus on decreasing. So this is the stuff I'm going to be looking for over the next 2 weeks as we get quarterly reports. I'd like to see the continued trend from some of the companies that I'm invested in where they're reducing their overhead, reducing it overall, reducing it, versus per coin. So that's a trend. That's one of there's some things that are totally in their control. There's so many things for Bitcoin miners that are not in their control at all. The price of Bitcoin is completely outside of their control. The difficulty level is completely outside of their control. Those two things have massive impact on a company's profitability. So what is in their control is controlling their overhead. Also, to an extent, controlling their cost per coin is within their control by managing, micromanaging their power consumption and ramping up and down, overclocking, underclocking, turning machines off, selling energy back to the grid. All those types of vehicles can mitigate and help manage cost per coin. And that is absolutely crucial. And we see a lot of these companies have their own proprietary systems where, they're trying to micromanage down to the second what each one of their machines should be doing. Should it be mining Bitcoin? Does it need to be underclocked? Do we need to stop and give, sell energy back to the grid? So, they're getting better and better at that. They've got 8 or 9 more months to continue to improve at that. And that's going to be key. That's going to be key to survival and thriving. Some of these companies I think will thrive through the halving and after the halving. A lot of them I think are going to survive, but many that survive, I'm just not sure they're going to be worthy investments. There's a difference between your company surviving, going forward, and living to fight another day. But that they may not be a good investment if they're not. These are high risk plays. This is a leveraged. I repeat myself in a lot in these live streams from week to week, but it's important for everybody to remember, especially if you're new here. I know, all of our members know this very, very well, and the subscribers who've been, listening to me and, doing your own research for a long time. Bitcoin miners are a leveraged play. I call them a 3x leverage. Sometimes it can be more than that. On Bitcoin, Bitcoin is an exceptionally volatile asset. So you got, a 3x or more leverage play on an already one of the most volatile assets in the market. So this is about as volatile of an investment as you can make. Now, during the good times, the reward is spectacular. The last time around, several companies 40x. 40x. That is very, very rare. We've already had some companies 10x or more since the bottom this November. So, you know, that's in an 8.5-month window of time. So we do get big moves, but it's worth noting, you know, for those of you who were in this in 2020, you know, 2021 and in November of 2021, if you were still holding these at the high, and I was holding some of these at the high, I had averaged out of some, but I was still holding some. You know, every single Bitcoin miner that's publicly traded was down more than 90% from November of 2021 to November of 2022. So, you know, when we're in a much better part of the cycle right now, and I think it's important to enjoy and celebrate. If you dollar cost averaged all along the way, a lot of people are up big right now. But, you know, if you bought and hold, or if you sold at the wrong time, there's big risk in these. You could have lost a lot of money. So, you know, some of these companies are up 400 or 500% in the last 7 or 8 months, but, you know, the preceding 12 months, they were down 90% or 95%. So the volatility is massive. I don't like to time these. I dollar cost averaged all the way down, basically. So there was a time where I was down a lot on these stocks. Some of them I'm now green on. A few of them I'm still not green on. I know we've had a lot of success stories, so please feel free to share your success stories in the chat. You know, if you rode this whole thing out and you dollar cost averaged in and you're in the green, let us know, because, you know, it's important. It gets discouraging. I think on, you know, we're back-to-back weeks here where we've been more red than not, and people get discouraged very quickly, especially after taking a beating all year in 2022. It's easy to fall into that, oh boy, here we go again. You know, we topped out, and, you know, it's just down from here. So I don't have that philosophy, and that, you know, I don't know if I'm right or but it doesn't, to me, as I look at the technicals, and we'll go through some of those, I'm not seeing any reason to believe we're going to crash from here. You know, George still thinks for those of you who don't know, George usually joins us on our Friday live stream. Also, George usually joins us on the members only live stream every Tuesday after the market closes. But he is on vacation with his family, so rightfully so, he is taking time to spend with his family versus being on this live stream with us. You know, so he still thinks we got some pain ahead. I'm not saying we don't have pain ahead, but I think we've long since bottomed. I'm going to go to the 1-day time frame and you know, take a look at a couple things that I think show us. To me, I think this is obvious. So that doesn't mean I'm right. You know, maybe what looks obvious to me is wrong for all I know. But when I look at this, you know, this was November. This was FTX. We had a giant drop in FTX. This was November 9th. We had a double bottom here later in the month of November. But from that point until the top, you know, this arrow is a little ridiculous, but you can see this was a massive, you know, we're let me get a different arrow. That's just ludicrous. To me, that's the general direction. We're 8 or 9 months into this general direction. And you can see we have a green line here. This was a descending line of resistance. So we had 2 months, I think there was 68 days maybe, where we set a higher high and then we set this higher low. And importantly, we held a very strong line of support here at 25,200. If you look back, 25,200 went all the way back to August of 2022. That's where we peaked. So we had a big, you know, we had a crypto winter in 2022. We had one nice rally where we got up to 25,000. That was, you know, that was the best it got in 2022. So it was down from there. So from there, we retested this in February of 2023 and it failed. We hit this higher low from our bottom. So we called the bottom. You know, this wasn't rocket science. You know, you're never sure, but this was a pretty clear bottom. And, you know, it's been 8.5 months of upward trend. Yes, we had a pullback here. So we had a 20% pullback inside of this bull market. That was one. We had another one here. And again, this one took a little longer. This was another well, if I go down to the low, you'll see this was another 20% pullback. So that's two 20% pullbacks. Let me get rid of this arrow because it's making this pullback has not been as dramatic so far from top to bottom. This was more like 11%. But if I do, if we look at an info line from the day we ran up until now, it's been 44 days. So, is it going to be another 60 days? Do we got another couple, 2, 3, 4 weeks of this of going sideways? I don't know. But, nothing here that's happening right now is even as dramatic as this was. And this rewarded itself in a big run up after. So, I pointed out the series of higher lows, but you could say the same thing. From here, we had a higher high, we had a higher high, and really this was a higher high. Not much, but this was a higher high. On this day in April, we got to 30,600, and then here we got to 31,800. So that's $1,200. So, it's not a massive move to the upside, but higher lows, higher highs, all this says bull market. So this is all good stuff. I don't see my point of all this is there's nothing in here that leads me to believe, oh, we are now in a reversal. This run is over. Here's the clear signs that show, bad things are ahead. You go with the trend until the trend changes. That's been my philosophy. I didn't make that up. That's a, age-old investment philosophy. Don't try and buck the trend. This is what's happening. Run with it. So, now there are times where you'll see clear signals or a confluence of signals. I don't like to look at any one thing, but sometimes you'll start to see, wait a second, this 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 things, when I add all these up together, I'm seeing a shift in the market. I have reason to be concerned. I'm not seeing any of that yet at all. I don't see any signs that tell me that the next big move is to the downside. Now, I will tell you, that doesn't mean that the next little move won't be to the downside. We are in the middle of a pullback right now. I think we just showed we're 44 days into, a little bit of a downward bias. So this line right here, let me get out of that mode. This line right here at 28.8, this has held very, very strong. You can see, I'll just zoom in a little. All through this trend, this goes back to July 24th. It's now August 4th. So, even as we tested this, we got very close on this day. We candle wicked below on this day, but every single daily candle held this line at 28.8. What's more is, even if you drill all the way down to the 15-minute candles for this 10 days, so that's 4 candles an hour times 24 hours a day times 10 days a week. There was only one candle in that whole time that closed just a little bit below this 28.8. So this line has held all the way down to the 15-minute time frame, which is unusually strong. So, here we sit literally at it right now. We're at 28,747. So this one day, we're sitting in a one-day candle that is it's going to do one of two things. It's either going to candle wick below 28.8 or close below 28.8. So if it does close below 28.8, for those of you who follow the channel, you'll know I've been talking for some time about a price target, somewhere in here, somewhere at the 27,000 or 27,500. That may seem like an arbitrary number, but essentially that would continue this trend of higher lows. So this could hold because this would also continue the trend of higher lows. Maybe 28.8 holds. If it doesn't, I don't expect to get back down to 25.2. I expect to find support somewhere in the middle. The final test would be this line at 25.2. It's not impossible we could candle wick down and retest this line. If we do go below this line, that would be one indicator where I would start to say, okay, now I got to see, are we piecing together a puzzle where we have reversed the trend? So that would be something very important to look for. If we close a daily candle below 25,200, we're nowhere in that neighborhood. We've yet to close a daily candle below this line at 28.8. I remain optimistic, even though we're sitting right on the absolute brink of that right now as we speak. If I zoom into the 15-minute, you know, here's this line at 28.8. So you can see on the 15-minute time frame, we got below this, and look what happened. Even all the way drilling down to the 15-minute time frame, an immediate reversal. This 15-minute candle has run all the way back up. So it's now, you know, it just flashed in and out of the green. So you can see how strong this has held up. That doesn't mean it's going to. Maybe we'll close below that. If it does, I'm looking for 27.5. All those things to me are not trend reversals. So for me, they're buying opportunities. So let's get to the next poll. I'm telling you what I think. Let's see what you guys think. Sorry, typing again, so I can't talk while I type. Okay, next poll. So, what is Bitcoin's next move? Are we going to hold at this 28.8 line, which is the red line? If you're looking at the screen, there's a red line. Is that going to hold? And whether we have got to go sideways for a few weeks or not. Will that line hold up and then we head up to 35,000? Are we going to have to go down somewhere in the 27,500 range, plus or minus, and then head up? Are we going to go down? This says 35,000. I don't think I can edit this. That third option is supposed to say down to 25,200. Let me see if they let me edit. Nope, just end. So for everybody, that third line is supposed to say down to 25,200 and then back up. Or are we headed into a bear market? Is this the end of the run and we got a bear market ahead? So again, watch for the typo. That 35.2, that third option is supposed to say 25,200. So as we look, it's nerve-wracking to look at this at the 15-minute time frame. I do this a lot during the day just to see how the day is going, but this is micromanaging. So, but we're still here. We are above this line. I'm going to go back to the 1 day. Almost all of the Bitcoin miners were down on the week. So anywhere from 7 or 8%, 10%. Some of them were down as much as 20% this week. So I tried to look at this in 2 or 3 different ways. How much were they down on the week? How much are they down on the month? And then how much are they down on the 3-month period of time? And I'm going to use a specific example for where, I think all 3 of those are important. I'm going to go to Stronghold, which is a company that I have. It's one of my smaller investments, but I am invested in this. I got in at the right time. It retested this low here at $4. So, I was able to get in this at the right time. It is going to be a swing trade for me, possibly. I like this company. I like what they're doing. I don't know. I don't have as much conviction in this as some of my other trades, but I didn't sell any of this. So I've been holding this. But the reason I didn't add to this, you're going to see is, over the last, if we do this over the last week plus, this is down 30% in a short period of time. So that seems like a big pullback and a buying opportunity. My issue is, in a couple of month period, it's still up, 80%. So is this really a buying opportunity? For me, that gets ambiguous. It depends on your conviction in the stock versus something like, I'm going to go to Bitfarms. Bitfarms is actually from a week ago, this is down 17% from, not quite a month ago. This is down 28%. On the flip side, it's up, 15%. So this is not up 50, 60, 70, 80%. So to me, that's a better equation. Even if I go all the way back here, to this low, that's up 63% from the middle of May. And I have a higher level of conviction in Bitfarms. That's just my personal opinion, not financial advice. For me, Bitfarms has been this could be the stock I've held the longest. I'm in the U.S., so for me, I bought this over the counter before it was even on the NASDAQ, maybe a year before they listed to the NASDAQ. So that was a whole exciting time. All of the Canadian companies over the course of time listed themselves on the NASDAQ as well. I think that was a good move for all of them. They're also listed, I think, mostly on the Toronto Exchange. So, if you're in Canada, you can buy them there. If you're in the U.S., you can buy them on the NASDAQ. The goal of that, and they still really haven't reached that, was to access all of the equity in the United States. Right? There's massive, massive retirement funds and hedge funds and all that kind of stuff that is, they'll buy a stock on the NASDAQ. Part of the problem is, though, through a crypto winter, most of these did not get adoption. As you guys mostly probably know, Riot and Marathon were already on the NASDAQ. They had, a big, big advantage. They're U.S. companies. They were listed for a lot longer on the NASDAQ. They have a lot more institutional adoption than their competitors. As a result, they have much bigger market cap. So that can be either good news or bad news. They are two of the larger companies for sure, but their market cap may have less upside than a micro cap stock or a nano cap stock. I still think a company like Bitfarms and Hive, they still haven't gotten their bump that they would have got or should have gotten had we not moved immediately into a crypto winter, right after they moved over to the NASDAQ. So that move is yet ahead. The institutional option or adoption, I believe, will happen. CleanSpark's over $5. It's a U.S. company. They're gaining institutional adoption. Riot's a $17 stock right now. Marathon's just under a $16 stock. So, I think Bitfarms, Hut, Hive, as they get a little more mature, I think they're going to gain a lot more adoption. And then we've got other big, big catalysts ahead. There's a Bitcoin ETF out there somewhere that's coming. We don't know when. Anybody's best guess. I suppose you could argue that that's never going to happen. To me, that argument is a very difficult argument to make. And to me, my personal opinion is it's a matter of when, not if. So I do think it's coming. They could continue to delay it. They've already delayed it much longer than I expected them to. The crypto winter, the series of fiascos, the FTX situation, Celsius, Voyager, a bunch of the other things that went wrong, Three Arrow Capital, all those things I think gave ammunition to the SEC to continue to reject this Bitcoin ETF. But some of the big, big, big companies, including BlackRock, are now in the business of looking for a Bitcoin ETF. They're going to get one. That's my strong opinion. So we'll see what happens. We'll see what and when, but that's going to be a gigantic catalyst. And there's more and more adoption coming. So we've been trading very sideways. I'm going to go to the 1 day. If you look at this, if we go all the way back to April, so April, May, June, July, that's 4 months of we hit a high of 31,000 in April. We hit a high of almost 31,000 in April, almost 32,000 in July. We're now in August and we're more around 29,000. So, we've had our ups and downs, but this is a lot of sideways consolidation that I think is going to lead. I've been saying 35. That's the next spot that makes sense to me. Obviously, who knows what happens? Time will tell. But I still remain, for all the reasons we just talked about. And I also want to look at this. I feel like we got a little unlucky, might be the wrong word. So this is the daily RSI. This is just basically a trend of whether, they talk about being overbought or oversold. So the higher, most of you are probably familiar with this, but for those of you who are not, a super quick primer, the higher this is, you are considered overbought, which means there's probably some selling pressure coming. And the lower this number is, you're considered oversold, and there's probably some buying pressure coming. So like all other indicators, none of these are perfect. So, I'll zoom out and you'll see there are times, even on the 1-day time frame. So 70 is considered overbought. 30 is considered oversold. That is a general rule of thumb. Obviously, it's not an exact science. If you go back to January of 2023, on the 1 day, we got up to 90 on the daily RSI. So you can see when Bitcoin runs, it runs. This is what I'm saying. This is a very volatile asset. So, 100, getting up to 90 on the daily RSI is massive. You will not find that very often. But you'll see much more frequently, we do tend to top out, in the low 70s here in March. Then again in April, we, during this nice run up right here where we, we retested a bottom. So we retested 25,200. We talked about that earlier. That was our high or low. You'll see the way I've been tracking the daily RSI, we found some support here at around 36. So I drew a gold line back in the day, or orange, or whatever color this is, because typically we look for a full reset. That's the best signal you can get, and even that's no guarantee. These things, no one thing. I always like to stress, please look, look at as many indicators as you can. Try and find trends. Try and find, when things start to line up and agree with each other. But on here you can see we got to 36. We retested that right as we hit our lower low. So, I'm looking at two numbers here. Yeah, maybe we need to do a full reset down to 30. But I also think if we could bounce off of this line at 36. So one of the things that was frustrating to me is right on a live stream, sometime last week, I don't remember if it was last Tuesday's live stream or last Thursday's live stream, the daily RSI, now each one of these data points happens at the close of the daily candle. So this can move up and down throughout the day, but the fixed point becomes the daily, when the daily candle closes. We're getting close to a daily candle close right now. So one of these days we did get all the way down, even during the live stream. We were almost touching this line. And I just felt like, if we could close out the day like that, maybe that's the reset we're looking for. But sure enough, the live stream ended, and for the next hour and a half, Bitcoin raged, and it turned around and raced in the other direction. And, we got a close way up here, way above this. So even though as we were watching, this looked like a reset on the RSI, it just didn't close there, so we didn't get it. Instead, we got this sideways activity that really doesn't help at all. That's very, very neutral. Then we ran up over 50, and only to turn right back around. So what I'm hoping is sometime, today is Friday, I would just as soon we not have a run up in the next few hours. Let's see a daily candle close here, and then maybe over the weekend sometime we get one to close down around here. If we can just finish out this reset, and I don't know if it needs to go to 36 or 30. For me, in my opinion, that's when I think we're going to get the reversal and take that run up to 35,000, because you can see, here from 36, remember, we got to 72 here, we got to, 71.5 here, 71.5 here. We've gotten as high as almost 90. So even where we are right now, we're at 41. If we could get down to 36 or 30, we could take a nice long 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 week run up to a higher high, and that $35,000 number is what I'm looking for. Now, the first signal for that is going to be a breakout out of this 31,000-ish range that we can't even get back up and retest that. We need to break out of that, but I do think probably first we need to bottom out here. So if we look at the MACD on the daily time frame, this is not telling us. You can see these are very small candles on the histogram, and so no momentum at all. Yes, we're in the red, but very little momentum. You can see, you know, we got into the light red. Now we've been bouncing back and forth very sideways. So at some point, you know, if we could get this little move down like this, here or here, and then get our bounce up, that could be, you know, simultaneous right here. You know, we could be set up at the same time. We could get a crossover here on the MACD, a bullish crossover, and then that's what I'm looking for. So, you know, I don't know if that comes over this weekend or if we bounce around sideways for yet another week, because you can see this can bounce around. All this neutral activity on the daily RSI, all this neutral activity on the MACD on a daily basis. So we don't know when the run is going to come. I remain convinced that the next move is up. Let's see what you guys are saying. What's Bitcoin's next move? In first place, holding 28.8 and then up to 35,000. That's getting 44% of the vote. Going to 27,000 or 27,500, that's getting 38% of the vote. So, you know, that's over 80%. Feel like, you know, maybe we're going to have a little pullback and then make the next run up. Down to 25.2, and there was a typo, it says 35.2. That's 8% and then a run up. There are 10% of you out there on the stream that do think this is the end of the run and we're headed for a bear market. So that number's higher than I expected. But, you know, there's always bulls and there's always bears. And, you know, we never know who's right until it all plays out. So we did get 10% that do think maybe, you know, the next move, maybe this run is over. It was 8.5 months. It was at its peak. We had more than a double. So Bitcoin more than doubled in about a 6.5 month window of time. Now we've been sideways a little while. So maybe perhaps the run's over. 10%, now 11% of you think that. I will tell you, I am, you know, and I don't know which one's right, but I'm here with, we're either going to hold at 28.8 in my opinion, or, you know, maybe bounce off of 27.5-ish, and then I think the next move is up. So that's where I'm at. Over 80% of you are in the same place. So some consensus, but, you know, we still do have some bears that think, you know, we got pain ahead, and it wouldn't be the first time. So we can't rule that out. But I just showed you some of the, you know, some of the more common indicators that I'm looking at. There's nothing, they're all very neutral at most. In fact, I'll go, speaking of neutral, if we look at the fear and greed index, we're at 54. So that is neutral. It's been neutral for quite some time. Yesterday neutral, last week neutral. Technically a month ago, 61 is greed, but that's at the ultra low end of greed. That's still just hardly above neutral. If we look at a 3-month chart of this, you know, we've been between, we did dip down a little bit here one time in June down to 41, but this line at 50 has held pretty strong, which is neutral. We've gotten up into the, you know, low to mid 60s. So we really haven't got up to greed. When we have these big runs, so even all year this year, we got to 68 in March. That was one of our big runs up. We got to 69 in April. That was another one. This last time, we only got to about 65. This can get to 80, 85. You know, if I go out to the max, back when things were rolling at the end of 2020, you know, we were up in close to 95. And then, you know, if we go here in October, November of 2021, remember that's when Bitcoin hit its all-time high. The fear and greed index, because I can't quite land on this spot, but, you know, it got up near 85. So that to me is, you know, when you start getting into 75.80, 85.90, that's when maybe you start to say, now we're overbought. That's probably a big clue that we're at the end of a bull run. But you know, this is a very good pattern to me. Again, if you look at an arrow, this is all still headed in a bullish direction. We've never really even gotten into greed yet, so I just think even this is screaming at us that, you know, the run is not over by any means. We did get, this was historically low. So a year ago in June of 2022, we got down to 6. This indicator is only just now maybe about 5 years old. So, you know, it hasn't been through multiple crypto winners, but this was the lowest we've ever been on here. I think we got, we got down to 5 in August of 2019. We got down to 6 on this one day last year. So that is very rare territory. 10 is full-blown crypto winner. Anywhere from 10 to 20 on the fear and greed is a full-blown crypto winner. So, you know, I digress, but my point is we're still neutral. So to me, there's lots and lots of room here. This could be months and months and months of continued run before this run is over. And then, you know, this isn't even the part of the cycle where we typically have our big bull runs. So we'll see what's ahead. I don't want to get too far ahead of ourselves. It's hard to, you know, like I've said, there's a very volatile asset. There's big moves to the upside and downside. We've seen 20% pullbacks even inside of a short period of time. Bitcoin doubled in a very short period of time, and we still had 20% pullbacks. So for me, I'm going to continue with the trend. I'm going to continue to view those as buying opportunities. I will say I'm trying to be very methodical. There are days where it's extremely tempting to just back up the truck, and I am not doing that. I continue to just add, you know, in drips and drabs when the opportunity presents itself. So, you know, and by doing so, with these big, you know, 68 days here of buying opportunities, we're 44 days here of buying opportunities. That doesn't mean I bought every time over these 44 days, but I probably made at least 10 different purchases over the course of 44 days. So I'll let you guys know today I was playing a short-term position that was absolutely a swing trade. I talked about this on the members only in great detail. By the way, self-promotion here. If you are interested, you can join we have a membership. It's got to be the cheapest membership on YouTube. It's $5 a month. I do think it provides a lot of value. We have a members only live stream every single week. So we get to talk about a lot more on that live stream. There's a bunch of members on right now. So thank you to all the existing members. You can become a member by hitting the join button on the YouTube page. So it's a YouTube partnership, so you don't have to go join some other third thing you're not involved in. There's a join button. If you don't see that join button, it should be right next to the subscribe button. If you don't see that, there's a link in the pinned comment to join. I really appreciate everybody's support. It does help the channel a lot. We're at historic, I don't know if you guys know, and I don't like to talk about the money side of this, because, you know, this is not how I make my living, despite the fact it is how I spend the vast majority of my time. I'm probably 50 or 60 hours a week into this. And we're, you know, my advertising revenue from YouTube, I'll just say is it's under $500 a month. So, you know, that's zero. I won't, you know, it's not fair to say it's zero. That's a little bit of money, but, you know, obviously that's not how anybody's earning a living. So it does help a little bit. So, you know, I don't want to go on about it, but I do appreciate anybody who's willing to support the channel. It's much appreciated. And I always want to take the time on every live stream to thank the existing members. I appreciate your guys' support. Also, your input on the members only live streams. We also do each week on the members only live stream, the members get to pick a company for me to do a deep dive on. So we have a big library of deep dives on some stocks that I don't otherwise get to talk about. We do focus mostly on small cap, high growth stuff. So enough said. Thanks again to all the existing members. Much appreciated. Okay, so let me try to read some of the comments because Normally, I have George here with me, and he helps me stay up to date in the chat. I have no poll going either. Did I end that last poll and not start a new one? So let's do that too. It's hard to jump into the middle of this chat since I've been missing the whole thing, but I will try. Edmund is saying, Tom, Stronghold is a losing company. They will never make any profits. Stick with Bitfarms, Iris, etc. So, I know Edmund's been a big proponent, and I did give him a shout out in one of my videos. I did an Iris Energy video for the public, and Edmund's been on Iris Energy early. Several of our members have been on Iris Energy, but most vocally, Edmund has been a big proponent. It's had a huge run up. Iris Energy is the stock that, so it's not my biggest position. I want to make that clear, but, and this is not financial advice, but I'm just telling you guys what I'm doing. It's the position I've added the most to in the year 2023 by far. So I added some more today. So today I bought three things. I bought some more Iris Energy, I bought some more Cleanspark, and I bought some more Bitfarms. But I also did something today that I haven't done really all year. I did sell something. I was in Mawson. I bought Mawson, stock ticker MIGI, and in the members only chat, I basically went in depth that, to me, that was a swing trade. I think it's wildly undervalued. I don't know that that's going to be one of the great success stories. It's a very small company. It's a nano cap company, but it has not had its run yet. Almost all the Bitcoin miners are up 300%, 400%, 500%. We have some, up over 1,000%, and that's just year to date. So they haven't had, they're up like 30%. So my thought was, let me put some money in there and see if I can catch a run up. And I was going to get in and out of there. So it was a green day on Mawson today. All told, I was down about 1% on my position. So I got out of my Mawson position and added a little bit extra to Cleanspark, Bitfarms, and Iris Energy, which are my highest. Those are my three highest conviction plays. They're actually not my largest positions. Riot is also a large position for me. That turned into, at one point, my absolute largest position. And the reason for that, I'm going to go to this chart here. Let me find it. Okay, so this chart is not updated through this Friday. I update this every Friday after the market closes, and I'll do a video on it over the weekend. But you can see Riot, through last Friday, Riot was up 442% this year. So that was a big position of mine, and that run up of 442% turned it into the biggest position of mine. So several months ago, I took a little bit of that off the table because I felt the run was so massive, and I invested it into some of the other ones, kind of a rebalancing of my portfolio. I don't do very much selling, so it's not like I eliminated my position in Riot. I just did a little bit of rebalancing. So you can see Mawson's only up 33% year to date. So my concept was, and there's a recent example of this. GREE, was zero for the first 6 months of the year. So as of June 30th, actually they were negative. They were negative 2 or 3% on the year. And then they had a 2-week period where they ran up 170%. So I was going to try to hang out and catch that run. But for me, on these down days, it was just such an opportunity, I thought, for some of these other super high conviction plays that I have, that I did get out of that and into the other ones. So, it's not financial advice. There's a lot of different ways. I might kick myself later. If a month from now, if Mawson's up 180%, then I missed a 5X. Well, I'm not going to cry too much about it because I did take that money and put it into companies that I think are great companies. So, hopefully they're not going to catch the same type of run a nano cap tiny stock like Mawson is going to catch, right? Mawson's a $25 million market cap company. These are 300 million, 500 million, a billion. A couple of these are $2 or $3 billion market cap. So, you're not likely to get as fast and vicious a run up as you would in some of these that have lagged behind. So this is an interesting chart if you guys want to take a look at this. This is what these companies have done through last Friday. That's not updated for this week. This was not a good week for any of these Bitcoin miners. So, you know, like I said, anywhere from 6% to 20% down this week. The larger ones, Riot and Marathon, actually, I think were amongst the best performers, down only 5 or 6% on the week this week. So I have a lot of charts like this. So for those of you who, you know, if you're new to the channel, I know a lot of you I see in the chat are longtime visitors, supporters, subscribers. So much thanks to all of you guys. But if you are new, these are the types of things. I've got 50 different charts like this, and I try to just try to cut this up as many ways as I possibly can, you know, and, you know, see which one of these charts, maybe something jumps out at you. That's the best you can do. So that's what we spend most of our time on this channel with, as most of you guys know. All right. Duckman, great job, Tom. Love your style. Thank you, Duckman. Appreciate it. Saeed is asking, what do you think CleanSpark's outstanding shares are right now? So we're going to get an answer to that. Well, when does CleanSpark report earnings? I want to make sure they're one of the ones that... Okay, yeah, coming right up. So typically when they report earnings, they'll tell us what the outstanding shares were, you know, as of these will be June 30th, but a lot of times they'll also say, you know, outstanding shares as of the date of, you know, the filing. So that'll be August 9th. So we're going to get a closer look at that. I know CleanSpark is doing some dilution. This is a topic of great debate amongst Bitcoin mining investors. I have, I think, a different opinion than most people. This industry is very new. It is a capital-intensive industry, and the companies that don't ramp up to where they need to get to before the halving, in my opinion, like I said earlier, I'm not going to say they're going to fail. They're just not going to be good investments, in my opinion. You know, just because you survive the halving, you know, if your company's up 1 or 2 or 5% return over the next 5 years, that's not what you're looking for from an ultra high risk investment. You're looking for 3X's, 5X's with the shot of a 10X or a 20X if Bitcoin has its next big bull run, you know, or its next bull cycle or blow off top. You know, that's what we've seen in the past. I will tell you, both Riot and Marathon more than 40X'd in the last cycle. So it's not unprecedented. Even in this cycle, which hasn't even gotten going yet, we've had Core Scientific 20X since mid-November. So, you know, now, having said that, in the middle, they filed bankruptcy. So they're, you know, they're traded over the counter. They were down to a 4 cents stock. So a penny stock in its truest sense. But, you know, I did not buy on that. So for those of you who did, congratulations on one of the most spectacular run-ups of all time. You know, that's a 20X in a short period of time if you played it perfectly, which, you know, most people don't play these things perfectly, but even those who dollar cost averaged in are probably in pretty good shape right now. I skipped the whole thing, so I did not catch that run. That's okay. You know, you can't get them all. But my point is, you know, we're looking for big returns on these. So in exchange for that, you need a lot of growth, and you're going to have a lot of well, a lot's the wrong word. You're going to have dilution. There will not be one Bitcoin mining company that doesn't have dilution. Every single one of them will have dilution between now and the halving. So the question is how much dilution, but the real question is what are they getting for it? Because I feel like so many investors miss that side of the equation. If you're drastically improving your company through stock dilution, basically you're issuing equity. We call it stock dilution, and that's a byproduct of issuing more shares of equity. You're raising money. So if you're raising money to make yourself a much, much better company, that can be a great thing. That can be the best thing you could possibly do for your company. So these need to be taken on a case-by-case basis, and you've got to judge for yourself how you think management has done. Have they been judicious with it's your money? Have they been judicious with the stockholders' money, or have they been wasteful and made bad decisions or risky decisions? And we've seen different examples of that. So there is no one size fits all. For me, CleanSpark is an example of a company who's been extremely resourceful, and they have put their money that they've raised to very good use, right? They're going to go from 2 exahash to 16 exahash in 2 years. So, that kind of growth is monstrous. And at the same time, if you look at their monthly operational reports, they are an extremely efficient Bitcoin miner. So they continue to improve their efficiency, and they're buying as a larger and larger portion of their fleet becomes these XPs or equivalent. Those are much more energy efficient machines. They're also getting a lot more efficient at managing their energy, like we talked about earlier. So I think this company's firing on all cylinders. So it's not financial advice. This is one of my positions that I hold. I did add to it as recently as today. So, obviously from my perspective, I like this company a lot. So, and I think that the amount of shares that they have outstanding, I'm going to keep my eye on it. It's a data point you want to understand. But to me, as long as they keep doing what they said they were going to do with the money, it's really, really good stuff. My personal opinion. So Edmund is saying, Tom, CleanSpark 2. Are you saying CleanSpark's good or CleanSpark's bad? Your statement before that was Stronghold's a losing company. Oh, okay. And then you say stick with Bitfarms and Iris Energy, and then I think you're adding to that CleanSpark as well. So, and I will tell you, those are the 3 I bought today. So Edmund, I'm taking your advice. Those are the 3 positions that I added to today. So let me know. Let everybody drop in the comments who bought what today. Darren is saying, I dumped Stronghold like a smoldering dumpster fire. So Darren's out of Stronghold. Let's see. Edmund, quality miners do great at Bitcoin above 27K. Problem in July was excessive heat. That should break by mid-September. This is about 6 weeks away. Iris did fine even with the high power cost. So, yeah, a lot of these companies managed even through the heat of summer, and a lot of these companies have big operations in Texas and other places that, the summer is hot. So, I can speak for, I happen to be in the U.S. I grew up in the Northeast. I'm in Florida right now, so, it's just hot. It's just hot. But even when I was in upstate New York, it's just hot in the summer. It was 90 degrees in the summer, when I was a kid in New York. So the summer is hot, and that does put pressure on these companies. Some of them have very good arrangements where they actually sell, their energy and make some money during those times to kick back to the grid and support the grid. Somebody put out a report. It might have been KPMG. Let's see if that's who it was. Yes. So if you have not read this, it's worth a read. It's a pretty balanced. So KPMG is one of the big 4 accounting firms. Obviously, all those accounting firms do a lot more than just accounting and auditing now. They're more advisory, IT, all different types of things. But so I came. That's my background as well. I didn't work at KPMG. I worked at PricewaterhouseCoopers. Actually, and when I was there, it was just Coopers and Lybrand. They had not merged yet with Pricewaterhouse. But here's a company. So this is a very reliable, unbiased source. And they put out this nice article. So I would recommend people read this. And they talk about Bitcoin's role in ESG imperative. And, they go through in my mind, they stick to the facts, as accountants tend to do. You know, it may be a little dry or boring, but I think they talk about what's really going on here and put things in perspective, which is important. Nothing is as great as anybody thinks it is, and nothing is as horrible and evil as anybody thinks it is. Somewhere in the middle, there's a reality of where things are at. And I thought it was important for somebody like KPMG to step up. This is a very, very, one of the most credible sources, you know, amongst the business community at large that there is. So, you know, if you haven't seen that, FYI, that's out there. And that just came out, and I think there's a lot more of that's gonna come out. You know, Bitcoin, at first Bitcoin was painted with this, you know, it's a disaster for the environment, it's a disaster for the energy grid, but you know, a lot of these companies are proving those things to be myths to a certain extent. Yes, it does use energy, but it's probably, as a percentage, it may be the greenest industry in existence. Now, the counter argument to that is a lot of people will say, well, it just shouldn't exist at all. Well, okay, that's your opinion. But to me, I think this adds value, you know, to those who understand Bitcoin and cryptocurrency. There's more. ESG is more than just E. And, you know, so the social value of Bitcoin for a lot of developing countries and a lot of you know, middle class and struggling people, there's a lot to be said for the Bitcoin case, and I can't sit here and make that quickly in a few minutes, but those of you, you know, a lot of you I know the details of what I'm talking about. There's this decentralized currency couldn't be a very good thing for a lot of people who would otherwise be struggling financially, or who are struggling financially. And, you know, as I look at the world, and you know, you guys let me know if it's different where you are. I know we have, thankfully, much appreciated. Also, drop in the chat where you're from. I really love seeing people from all around the world participate. That's one of the things that I love about doing this on YouTube. It's a chance for people globally to have a conversation together. So from where I am, I see people struggling all over. So it's getting harder and harder. Forget get ahead. It's getting harder and harder just to, you know, keep up financially. So, you know, I do think that Bitcoin presents a unique opportunity. And, you know, I tend to lean more towards Bitcoin. I don't know if I'm a Bitcoin maximalist. I do think there's a place for some of the other cryptocurrencies. I also think, you know, there's no place for 20 or 30,000 of these coins and tokens. So I think over time, a lot of them will fade away. A lot of people have been scammed by some of the, you know, wrongdoers. We're weeding through that process, and there will be the winners and losers. And, you know, Bitcoin in all likelihood won't be the only winner. In fact, two big companies today, iShares, I think, might have been one of them. They applied for a Bitcoin / Ethereum ETF. So 50% Bitcoin, 50% Ethereum. So that is new. And I read that today. I'm not sure if, you know, that news came out today. I saw it today. So, you know, we don't even have a Bitcoin ETF yet, but they're already on to the next phase. Obviously, Ethereum is by far the second largest cryptocurrency. So just to take a super quick look somewhere. So if you look, I mean, the vast majority of the cryptocurrency universe is either stable coins. You've got Bitcoin at $564 million. That's very close to 50% of the entire crypto universe, even including stable coins. So the market cap is about $1.16 million. So you can see that's actually, you know, that's a solid, just about half. Ethereum's in a distant second, but by far the second largest at $219 billion. Then it drops all the way off. I'm going to skip Tether, which is a stable coin. That's $83 billion. The next actual coin or token is all the way down from $219 billion Binance is the third largest token at $37 billion and XRP at $33 billion. So you can see the drop off is drastic. This is a Bitcoin, Ethereum world. All the rest of these coins are just kind of living in it. And that doesn't mean that some of them won't succeed. I know there's a lot of names you guys know. Dogecoin to me is not a long-term investment, but maybe a lot of you have made money. There's a big, strong case for XRP. George, who usually shares the live stream with me, he has done a deep dive, and we have a few members and subscribers I know that have done a deep dive on XRP as well. I think there's a place for XRP. Cardano, Solana, Polygon, I do think, that has been very popular. I think there's potential place for that in this world. Litecoin, I'm just not sure what's going on with Litecoin. It still hangs around, but I'm not sure the value there. And I'm not a cryptocurrency expert. I really focus on Bitcoin and the Bitcoin miners. Obviously, I try and stay at least, minimally up to speed on what's happening in the cryptocurrency universe, but I am by no means an expert on all these projects. My point is, you can see this is very top heavy, and for me, Bitcoin does stand out for me in so many ways. There's so many fundamental differences between Bitcoin and every single other coin, including Ethereum. It is the most decentralized, in my opinion. Its fundamental structure is set up to be decentralized and not to be interrupted with in any way from now until the end of time. I also like the fact that it's capped at 21 million. So unlike, fiat currencies are really taking a beating from a public perception standpoint, because, the U.S. is one of many countries that just does nothing but print more and more currency. So, ultimately, long term, that should have the effect of devaluing that currency. So Bitcoin is the opposite. It's a fixed number. And that's one of the problems I have with some of these coins. There's 500 billion of them. There's 10 trillion of them. I'm not sure you're going to find the value in something that has that type of supply. That even dwarfs the supply of U.S. dollars. Not from a market cap standpoint, but from a quantity standpoint. So I just think, Bitcoin was first. I think they got it right. Proof of work, I know a lot of people moved away from because of the energy it takes, but I think we're learning more and more. If we want to grow our energy grid, Bitcoin mining can be a big part of the backbone of a modernized, bigger, better energy grid. And we need to improve the energy grid all around the world. And, I can speak from in the United States, our grid's got a long way to go to get to where it needs to be. There's parts of the grid that are very, very old. And so that's my more than elevator speech, I guess, for Bitcoin. That's a lot of the reasons that I spend so much time on this. So if you're going to be a Bitcoin miner, if you're going to buy and hold the Bitcoin miners, you probably really should have some strong conviction in the underlying asset, which is Bitcoin. So I do have very strong conviction in that. And obviously, I think several of the miners are doing the right thing and doing a great job. Let's just quickly go back to the 15-minute and you'll see. So we're still, you can see, it's very close, but even at the 15-minute level, every single one of these candles continues to close above this 28.8. Now, I might be proven wrong by the end of the weekend. And if I am, I'm okay with that, as long as, again, if we can jump down into the 27 to 28 range, but more importantly, if we can get this, and I'm on the 15-minute time frame, I got to go back to the 1 day. If we can get this reset, if we can finish out, if we can do, ideally, and I don't want it to take that long, if we can get all the way back down to 30, you'll see most of the time. Here we got down to 29. Here we did for 1 day we got all the way down to 24 back in November of 2022. But you can see somewhere here it was around 30 in June of 2022, which was that was the low. Now we took that out when FTX went under, but June of 2022 was the massive flash crash. That was the low for Bitcoin at around 17,500. You can see even at that point, you know, we spent a couple of days oversold down towards, you know, this line is at 21. So that's pretty rare. I don't think we're going to have a bottoming out crash experience like that. So I think anywhere from 30 to 36 on the daily RSI is a reset. We can turn back around and head in the other direction. And we may not even ever get down to that. But the lower we get on this, the better chance we have of having a steady move to the upside that has the legs underneath it and the foundation underneath it to get up to that $35,000 number that I'm personally, you know, I have in my head. So I've seen a lot of people talk about 37,000. So, you know, maybe it'll be 37,000. I'm talking 35. If it does better than that, then that's even better. Let me see if I can just catch up a little. Let's see. Hello to Omar, if I hadn't said hello yet. Brent, welcome to the stream. It's hard to jump into the middle. I know a lot of you guys have conversations amongst each other on the chat, so I'm just trying to jump in and see what's what. So Edmund has done a deep dive on XRP recently, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, but it looks like you're saying buy XRP, period. So I think Edmund has done his own deep dive. Edmund, you know, not financial advice from Edmund, but I'm going to give Edmund a pat on the back. He's an experienced investor. He's given a lot of good advice in the membership, you know, in the members only live streams and beyond. So, you know, I value his opinion and as well as several others. I don't mean to just single out Edmund, but he did do a deep dive and he likes XRP as well. So he's mentioning that. Nash V, a member also, thanks for being a member, said, too many grifters for me in the altcoin universe. So I get it, Nash V, and I feel the same way. Like I said, I do think there's room for 6 or 7 or 10 coins, or maybe it's 20 coins. I don't know what the number is, but I feel pretty strongly it's not 5,000 or 10,000 or 20,000. Too many people are enriching themselves with pump and dumps on these coins that don't have any actual value behind them. They don't have any purpose or reason. So, you know, other than for a select group of people to make money. And the thing is, you know, you and me, and we're not going to be the people that make the money on that because, you know, we didn't invent the coin. We're not in on the ground floor. You can't, unless you want to go buy 20,000 coins, you know, and be in everything, you're not going to be in the ground floor. You're just not. By the time it's even on the radar, on exchanges, it's already had a certain amount of run, you know, that you've missed out on. So I'm not saying there's not money to be made. Some people have made a lot of money trading altcoins and getting in and out, day trading, swing trading. So, you know, if that's your thing and you've been successful, congratulations. Any way you can make money, that's what we're all here to do. I find that to be too much for me. I am with Nash V. Just too much nonsense with the rest of, and from a market cap standpoint, it's a tiny part of the crypto universe. It's just it's thousands and thousands and thousands of coins and tokens. So, you know, all too many people get taken advantage of. Let's see what else is going on. Chris Dominator, let's go Mara #1. So Chris Dominator has been a fan of Mara for a long time. Still sticking to that call. I think Marathon hit it out of the park this month, and I've been somebody where, you know, people that love Marathon tend to not like me. People that hate Marathon tend to not like me. And the reason is, if you look at my videos, and I've done at least one per month for the last 2 years on Marathon, every time some big news comes out or their monthly operational report comes out, I go through and see what's going on. in 2022, Marathon had a very, very difficult year operationally. That's just what happened. That's not what I'm saying happened, it's what happened. Right? They got to the point last July, which is just over 1 year ago, where their operations were almost completely shut down. They mined 73 Bitcoin. You know, this is a company that mined 1,176 Bitcoin in the month of July of 2023. Well, in the month of July of 2022, I believe they mined 73 Bitcoin. So you can see they were struggling. So when a company's in the middle of struggling, that doesn't mean they're going to fail. And I was always clear to point out, listen, financially speaking, this is a super strong company. So, and they have a plan that has a lot of potential, but they're not recognizing any of their potential. And my biggest frustration with them was they continued to promise things month after month and fall short of those promises. So, you know, I did call that out. I don't think it's unfair to talk about that while it's happening. But on the flip side, in 2023, they've been doing what they say they were going to do. It is later, you know, so some people will say, well, it's too late. I don't think it is too late. They just mined 1,176 Bitcoin. That's a Grand Slam home run, in my opinion, right? They mined more blocks than they've ever mined in their history. So, you know, in that regard, it's the best month they've ever had. A couple of months ago in May, there were so many Bitcoin fees collected on all that ordinal activity that they actually got more Bitcoin in May, but from just number of blocks mined, this was the best month they've ever had. They're ramping up their exahash rate. So I see a lot of good things happening. And Marathon and Riot, and I'm going to throw a company that a lot of people are down on, Hut 8 also. Those three companies have very, very strong balance sheets. You know, they're not all the same. There's differences between their balance sheets. Hive has a very strong balance sheet, in my opinion. A lot of these other companies have shaped up their balance sheets. There was a year ago where a lot of these companies had a bunch of debt, and it was a time where there was, you know, they were cash flow negative. So, you know, between interest and debt service, it was a disaster for some of these companies. Most of them have fixed that problem. So, you know, a lot of improvement, but, you know, there's three big stacks of Bitcoin. It is worth noting that CleanSpark made a drastic change in their policy for hodling. They were the first ones. They've been leaders, so I think they're leading once again. They started selling their Bitcoin before anybody. You know, a year and a half ago, more than a year and a half ago, coming up on 2 years ago, they started selling. So they were selling Bitcoin when it was $60,000. They were getting criticized for that. Oh, you're not even a real Bitcoin miner. You just sell your Bitcoin. There was a big contingency of people. I did a poll and it was shocking. Like 40% of the people said, we don't even consider CleanSpark a Bitcoin miner because they sell their Bitcoin. Well, that strategy turned out in their favor. You know, hindsight's 2020, but that was the best thing they could have possibly done because they got to dollar cost average out of their Bitcoin, and what they did was buy Bitcoin mining equipment and infrastructure with that, and they grew, you know, as a percentage more than any other company. So, you know, that was a good policy. Now, this month, for the very first time, you know, it's not the first time they've hodled some. They hodled the majority this month. So that was a major reversal. Now, I don't know that they're going to do that every month from now on. I expect they will address that on their conference call next week. They'll be putting out their quarterly report, and I'm sure they're going to be talking about their hodl policy going forward. But they doubled their amount of Bitcoin on their balance sheet in 1 month in July. So they can't do that every month. But you know what? When we've been talking about this for 3 or 4 months on the channel, I felt strongly CleanSpark they sent some signals that they would be doing this, and you know, we've been talking about it for a while on the channel, and now here finally they've made the big move. We'll see if it's something they continue to do. I'd love to see them end up with 2,000 or 3,000 Bitcoin on their balance sheet going into the halving versus the 300 or 400 or 500 that they had, you know, for a year and a half through the crypto winter. So we'll see if they've played this just right or not. Let's see. Sorry, I'm having a hard time jumping in because it looks like a lot of people are talking back and forth. That's okay. That's great. I encourage that. Just seeing if anybody's asking any general questions here. Massive conversation in the chat, so thanks everybody. Oh, I'm way behind. Let's see. Darren, sell the top, hodl the bottom. CleanSpark has the absolute most intelligent management. So that was from Darren. And it's funny. So Darren, I agree with you. I think they have great management, but they are probably the most criticized management out of all the Bitcoin mining companies. I just had a few comments on my most recent video talking about how awful and inexperienced and, you know, all types of bad things to say about CleanSpark's management. Well, I don't see any evidence of that. For, you know, and again, obviously that's my personal opinion, but I think the opposite. I think they've made good call after good call after good call. So I'm a big fan, and so that's just my opinion. We're at 74 likes. Anybody who has not smashed the like button, if you would please do so. It does help the live stream. It helps the channel. Also, if you have not subscribed to the channel and you enjoy this content, I really appreciate everybody subscribing. It really helps the channel out a lot in the algorithm, and it helps grow the channel. So, you know, I'm working my best to get you guys as much information as I possibly can on these Bitcoin miners. So, you know, obviously you don't have to subscribe if you don't want to, but it is free, and I really, really appreciate it. Gary said Marathon called the bottom, making their first and largest to date sale of Bitcoin in January. They held from peak only to sell at January bottom. CleanSpark seems to predict moves Marathon the opposite. And Marathon's not alone. There were several companies that unfortunately got caught in this crypto winter as things just got worse and worse and worse. A lot of companies had to really start selling at or near the bottom. And some companies actually didn't have to sell. I think they kind of panic sold some. Some companies had to sell. They were out of money. They were out of cash flow. Their debt was rolling them over. And, you know, they were in peril. So they unfortunately had to sell at, you know, the worst possible time. So, you know, that's just what happened. And you do what you have to do to survive. And a lot of them did survive that. A lot of these companies made some massive, massive renegotiations with their debt holders in their favor. They also made some massive renegotiations on their purchase agreements to buy Bitcoin mining machines. So, you know, a lot of these companies went from on the brink of, you know, ceasing to exist to getting all the way back to healthy. So, you know, congratulations to a lot of those. Some of those companies, even though they got healthy, I think they haven't scaled up enough. And so even though they'll survive, from my perspective, they're not great investments. But, you know, obviously everybody has their own opinion on that. Steven said, I suspect Marathon sold to fund the UAE expansion. So they did mine some Bitcoin for the first time this month out of that project. It was, I think, only like 17 Bitcoin, but that means, you know, it's happening. It's up and running. They are a 20% owner in that. That will be 7 exahash when it's done. So all the numbers that they report don't even reflect that piece of their puzzle. We'll see how that goes. They're dipping their toe in the water, if you will, right now. But Fred has expressed, the CEO of the company at Marathon has expressed the fact that they intend to, you know, be 50% in the United States and 50% outside of the United States. So right now they're 100% in the United States, or now, you know, with this month's results, 99.5% in the United States. So they've got a long way to go. So they may be expanding if they're true to their word. They may be doing a lot more where that came from. Darren said Bitfarms blew it selling the bottom too. So yeah, Bitfarms, you know, and Bitfarms has taken, rightfully so, they made a very risky move. They had the financial wherewithal to survive that move, but that is not what you're looking for your investments to do, is to survive. So that was a very costly move for them. I did not sell any of my stock through that. I actually added to my Bitfarms position. I saw what they did. I didn't like it, just the same as all the other investors. I didn't like what they did. It was a risk. It was a calculated risk. In hindsight, it was an awful, awful call, but they were not the only ones that got caught up. It was a bad move from a risk management standpoint. So however much FOMO you may have, and there was a time, I mean, if you guys think back to that time, in October, November of 2021, December of 2021, right? Most people were Plan B was out there talking about Bitcoin 150,000 by the end of December. I think 146,000 was his call. That was consensus. So, whatever you may have personally believed, I didn't think we were going to get that high, but I did think we were still going to continue the bull market, and that was totally wrong. So, they got caught up in that, and they paid, financially, they paid dearly. Having said that, they've made a series of outstanding moves in my position. So operationally speaking, they have consistently for the last 2 years, in my opinion, month after month after month, operationally, they've been outstanding. That was a financial error. I do think they've recovered from it. They'll never get back to where they were. It did, there was a cost to that mistake. So having said that, I think they're poised to be, I think they're in very good shape right now. So I'm very happy that I kept that position. I added to that position. I added to it today. So for those of you who missed, I did let everybody know I did make 3 purchases today. I added to my position in Bitfarms. I added to my position in CleanSpark, and I added to my position in Iris Energy. So those are the ones that I felt presented buying opportunities for me based on where my positions are at. It's not financial advice. Everybody's portfolio is different. Everybody's investment strategy, time horizon, all that. So, please make your own decisions. But I'm just letting you know what I did. That's what I did today. And, I still have a high level of conviction in Bitfarms. I know there's a lot of people that are just never going to forgive them for what it was a mistake. I agree. So I'm never going to argue that, that was a good thing. But I do think companies can recover from a mistake, and I think Bitfarms did. My opinion. Michael's saying Bitcoin dropped and miners are dropping. Yes, that is true. And we've had a little bit of wild swings. Over the course of the first half of July, Bitcoin was fairly sideways, as we saw. The Bitcoin miners ran up huge. Well, now Bitcoin's pulled back just a little bit. So as the Bitcoin miners had an over-exaggeration to the upside, we're getting a little bit of over-exaggeration to the downside over the last few weeks. I am strategically adding to my position. So again, it can get very tempting when you see one of your positions way down and it's a company you love. There's 2 things that can happen. For me, my bigger temptation is, man, I got to get in. I got to get more. So I try to do that in small doses, versus going crazy. And that has paid off. Patience has paid off. There'll be one day where there's a gigantic run up and you go, man, I wish I went all in yesterday. Well, hindsight's 20/20. So for me, it's slow and steady, dollar cost average in, and, I feel good about it. But so I guess the point is we've got a lot of red today. We had most of the Bitcoiners were. I'm gonna just look at a few. There were a couple that were really down this week. So a couple. I'm gonna start with Riot. You can see Riot actually. If I go back, so Riot and Marathon I think were among the best 2. What was last Friday? 27? 28? It's not on that chart. 28. So oops. So if I go, sorry for the delay. If I go from last Friday to this Friday, So call it 7%. Riot was down about 7%. Now, if I do the same thing with Marathon, last Friday to this Friday, Marathon was down 5%. So very sideways for Marathon and Riot. So those are the two biggest by market cap by far. They were very, very sideways. A 5% pullback, you know, that's not something that makes you feel like, oh, man, I got a giant FOMO. I got to get all in. And the other side of what I was going to talk about is the other thing to be careful of is the flip side of FOMO is panic selling. Oh, no, everything's dropping. Everything's keep dropping forever. I got to get out now. So many people for that reason buy high and sell low. You know, you've heard that a million times, I'm sure, but it is hard on some of these days. When you see things dropping like a rock, panic can set in. So both of those things are something even the most experienced traders have to keep those two compulsions in check if they want to be methodical, successful traders. So I struggle with it. I make the right call, but I've had, I only got to that point through years of making the wrong call and jumping all in or getting all out, right? We all go through the learning curve. So now, as bad as I want to, I won't back up the truck in one day on one thing. I just won't do it. And, if you miss your opportunity, there's always, the important thing to remember is there's thousands and thousands of stocks. And if you happen to miss this opportunity, there's always the next opportunity if you're paying attention. So to me, the bigger risk is, you overreact and make a mistake. So enough said about that. So those are the two that had very little moves. If I go to like Bitfarms, this was last Friday. So from last Friday, that's 13%. But if I go from, Bitfarms had a run up on Monday. So that's, that's a 17.5, almost 18% down. So that's why, to me, here we got below this low. And again, I didn't go crazy, but to me, this was a little bit of a buying opportunity. You know what? Maybe we're going to keep pulling back. We seem to have a line of support here a little bit. That was resistance. Then it was support. So I don't know. I'll buy some more if it goes down some more. But this had a bigger move. What were some other ones that had big moves to the downside? Stronghold. So, if I go from last Thursday to this Friday, so that's a week and 1 day, that's 30% move to the downside. So that, I was very tempted to increase my position in Stronghold, but I did not buy any Stronghold through all of this because, if I go back just to June 30th, so just a little over 1 month ago, we're still up 80%. So, yeah, there's been a giant pullback, but, I bought my stock, most of my stock down here in this area. So I'm not inclined to add when we're still up 80% from these lows. And this is a much newer trade for me. If this was Bitfarms that I'd been averaging into for years and it had a 30% pullback, maybe I would have had a different feeling. But this was a gigantic run-up. This was another stock that was down, revisiting its all-time lows, and had a huge run-up. So, to have a 30% pullback is a little more natural when you very quickly, in a short period of time, from June 29th to July 11th, so less than 2 weeks, this was up 173%. So, yeah, it gave a little bit of that back. Okay. That makes sense. Ryan is saying Riot $3 billion market cap, Mara $2.7 billion market cap, CleanSpark $600 million market cap. LOL. So I agree, Ryan. I think some of these market caps, I don't know how long it's going to take. Things have a way of being irrational for long periods of time, but at some point, for the companies that succeed, I do feel like they cross paths with their fair market value at some point. And that's why a lot of times you have to be very, very patient. I think CleanSpark's market value is a lot higher than $600 million. And especially when you compare it to its two peers, you know, its two closest peers are Riot and Marathon. There's a few others you could argue, but those, you know, from a production standpoint, in fact, they produce a lot more than Riot does. So now that's not the only thing. Riot's balance sheet is a lot stronger. So there's a lot of variables, and, you know, we'll see as these financial statements come out over the next couple weeks. But yeah, there's a lot of discrepancies like that. I'm going to go to, you know, I look at this chart a lot. Well, I do look at this chart a lot, but that's not the one I was talking about. This is market cap. So this was as of last Friday, so this is 1 week old. But you can see, I mean, look at these two companies. Are Riot and Marathon really this many multiples better than all the rest of the Bitcoin miners? I don't think so. I do think they should be the two highest market caps, and that's based on operational performance plus, you know, strength of balance sheet. And you know, if you add everything up, I do think these belong at 1 and 2 in market cap, but I don't think they belong, you know, triple number 3 or 5 times number 5 or 7 or 8 times number 6 or 7 or 8 or 9. I mean, Bitfarms had a big pullback. This was at 442 million. So let's go look, you know, and these aren't always perfect, but Bitfarms now is closer to 385,000. That pulled way back. I'll tell you another one that had a big pullback, and then we'll look at the chart. Iris Energy. Iris Energy's, you know, pushing. It's about to go under $300 million market cap. So Iris Energy, they produced 423 Bitcoin this month. That's more than Riot. That's more than Riot. That's more than CIFR. That's more than Bitfarms. That's more than TeraWulf. I mean, Iris Energy is performing very well. Why is their market cap about to go under $300 million? That's 1/10 the market cap of Riot Blockchain. So is Riot a bigger company? Yes. Does Riot deserve 10 times the market cap of Iris Energy? This is why this is the position I've added the most to in 2023. And once again, two things. Number one, not financial advice. Number two, it's not my biggest position. But I was late to the game on this, and I feel like I've had a big buying opportunity because here we sit, and it's still only at a $300 million market cap. And it's not like it hasn't moved up this year, because if you look at the year to date, they're up 422%. That's how ridiculous their market cap was. They're up 422%, and they're a $300 million company. Now, this information is 1 week old, so they're up a little bit less than that now, but you can see my point. A lot of these market caps, because this is such an immature space, this industry is very, very new. Almost every single one of these companies, this is their first cycle around. There's a few that have been through this before, but most of these are brand new, right? Marathon, I remember when Marathon had 0.1 exahash. And that's not like, oh, I remember, you know, back 15 years ago. That was like 2.5 years ago. They were at 0.1 exahash. Look it up. So same thing with CleanSpark, 0.1 exahash. I remember when they bought their first thing, they weren't even a Bitcoin mining company. They bought a very small Bitcoin mining operation in Georgia as a proof of concept for their microgrid product, and that's what they used to do. So, you know, some may say they already had intentions in mind at that point, and that might be true, but they weren't even mining Bitcoin 2.5 years ago. So, you know, most of these companies are very, very new, and the market does take time, especially the institutional money can take a lot more time. Super small market caps like this can be manipulated. So again, my long-term theory is at some point, if you stick with it and these companies succeed, their market cap will cross paths with their value at some point. So, but usually if you pick a stock, typically they're in a part of their cycle where they're overpriced, or they're in a part of their cycle where they're underpriced. it's very infrequently that, you know, you find a company that's just priced just right, especially in the smaller cap, higher growth stuff. Those tend to be much more volatile and have higher swings. So by their nature, you know, they're frequently at unusual market caps. And I'll just show you the market cap one more time. These are from Yahoo Finance. I do double check a couple of these along the way to make sure they make sense, and I watch these from week to week, but these numbers are probably not perfect. They're also 1 week old, and this was a down week, so almost every single one of these numbers is lower right now than it was. This is last Friday's information. But you can see Bitfarms at 442 million and now under 400 million. Iris Energy was at 358. It's now at 305. On the flip side, you got a company like Bit Digital. They mine like 120 Bitcoin a month. And they're sitting here with a similar market cap as Iris Energy that mines over 400 Bitcoin a month. Now, to be fair, Bit Digital does have an Ethereum portion to their business. I do not see how you get to this market cap. This makes no sense to me at all. There's some people that just disagree with me on that. I don't get it. Bit Digital and the run-up they've had this year is wild. Right? Bit Digital, other than Core Scientific, which is, you know, an over-the-counter company in Chapter 11, so their activity is unusual. Bit Digital is the #1 performing Bitcoin miner that's, you know, not an over-the-counter stock this year, up 605% as of last Friday. So that makes no sense to me. This is not one of my top 10 companies that I would consider from a long-term investment, but the market, at least in the short term, the market drastically disagrees with me. So, you know, maybe everybody's right and I'm wrong. We'll see. So you can see where this daily candle, get these down a little bit. We're now at over 29,000. So, you know, we'll see what happens. Last time I had a live stream, we were almost at the close of a daily candle, and I thought I knew where we would close, and then there was a gigantic move right after the live stream ended. So, you know, for all I know, that could happen again. But it looks like we're going to hold above this 28.8 again today. Now, we have all weekend. We could drift below. We'll see what happens. All right, so I had to fly solo today. Hopefully, you know, sorry I didn't get to as many of your comments, but I do see that you guys had a nice conversation amongst yourselves. So, again, thank you to all of the subscribers. If you are not a subscriber, I really would appreciate if you enjoy this content and you enjoy this channel, please subscribe. To the existing subscribers, thank you very much. And, of course, a special thanks to the existing members for supporting the channel. It means a lot. So I'm going to wrap it up, and everybody, please have a great weekend. We'll see how Bitcoin does. Let's hope for some, you know, in my ideal scenario, we bottom out, the RSI resets over the weekend, and we can start running again. But more realistically, I'd probably guess we got 1 or 2 more weeks of sideways activity. So we'll see which one it is, or something else besides those. So those are my best guesses. Thank you so much for joining me. It's very much appreciated. And enjoy your weekend. And my technical support is out right now, so I will make some videos this weekend, but I may end up doing some live stream this weekend because my tech support for editing and all that is away for the weekend. So if you see, I'll try to put out a notice. If you see, hope you join me on the weekend for a live stream. Otherwise, have a great weekend, and we will see you next week.